just record now. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Safe Cantonese, which is a project I've recently got into, and the goal of the project is to preserve Cantonese in the West, especially in North America. And I propose that there's a case of language advocacy, and I'm going to provide some personal and academic perspectives, which I think are quite obvious. And before I begin, I'd like to cite the very famous line from the Elephant Man: "I am a human being." Famous protagonist who's being ridiculed for being like an elephant. He screams out that he is a human being, so he demands human dignity and etc. But this brings us down to the meaning of what it means to be a human being, and I'm going to talk about this from a linguistic point of view. Right. So how did this all begin? This project. I mean, there's a very brief timeline. It all began around about July 2020, so in the full swing of COVID. Our world just changed, and among higher education institutions like Stanford, they announced that they would terminate their contract at the full-time position of Cantonese language instructor there. So Dr. Denik, or as we say in Cantonese, Zheng Lo Si. Okay, so Zheng is her Chinese surname, yeah, and Lo Si means teacher. So this is our way of referring to teachers, and just teacher Zheng Lo Si. This gave rise to a massive a backlash in terms of Stanford was concerned, because a petition was launched by former students, former colleagues of Dr. Zheng, and the idea was to try to get Stanford to reverse the decision. And this petition just it got thousands of signatures from people, former alumni of Stanford, current students, or even people people like me who have nothing to do with Stanford. And of course, the numerous testimonials from former students of Dr. Denik, which showed just how popular she was. And around the same time, the various social media channels were launched on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They even have their own blog and website. So it can all be found by this hashtag Save Cantonese, or this label Save Cantonese. And this became an international and global collective movement. So, for example, in May last year, our campaign got an ally to its sister campaign, so Safe Cantonese at the CCSF, City College of San Francisco, who also similarly announced that they would be making cuts to the Cantonese course, and that was a very unpopular decision. So some action was implemented. At the beginning of this year, there was a board meeting with the CCSF, and they announced that they would continue Cantonese course. And most importantly, the big news is there was an endowment of $1 million from SJ distributors who proposed to use this money to support the Cantonese course at Stanford. So this was a very big news. So all the information can be found on the Safe Cantonese social media channels. And if I Save Cantonese was renamed and rebranded just last month, as we can see from the Twitter webpage. And all information can be found on the Safe Cantonese website, as well as the Safe Cantonese CCSF link. So so what does all of this mean for me? I joined the Safe Cantonese at Stanford. I joined the Slack group. Yeah, so they, like us, also use Slack, and the Slack is very useful for these kind of things. I joined on the 7th of January of last year, after signing the petition, which I found on social media. I suppose the personal angle for me is because I'm from Hong Kong, and in Hong Kong, Cantonese is the it's the main language of communication. So for me, saving Cantonese has a personal touch to it. Academically, I do research in Chinese linguistics, especially on Chinese dialects. So any type of thing that deals with Chinese dialect is of interest to me. And I think my biggest contribution to the campaign is my writing. I've written an opinion article on Asia Times online last April called "Importance of Teaching Cantonese at Western universities." And on Christmas Eve of last year, I wrote a Chinese Cantonese blog, which was which can be translated as protect overseas Cantonese in the Hong Kong blog. So I think my writing has been my biggest contribution to the campaign. There are many aspects and many facets to the campaign, like a fundraising, communications, team, communication effort, etc. And I think that my biggest contribution has been my writing. Yeah, I have a column on Asia Times online, which you can find here, where I've been writing things, not just on say Cantonese, but on various other aspects of socio linguistics of Chinese, and all my important writings and blogs can be found on my a Medium authors channel. So that's one thing. If I just to give a background of the Chinese of a Chinese a dialect, there's a very common misconception that Chinese consists of two mutually exclusive varieties like Mandarin and Cantonese. As many people, when they learn or when they come into contact with some Chinese, they often say, "Hey, do you speak a Mandarin or Cantonese?" As if there are just two mutually exclusive forms of Chinese, Mandarin and Cantonese, and that is a massive oversimplification. But in my first ever Asia Times op-ed, I've tried to dispel some of these myths, and I suppose that you can probably find all of the references in the op-ed here. And if I just give a very brief summary of the analysis that I gave, the socio-linguistic premise is that a dialect is any variety. It can be regional or social, stylistic. A famous textbook, by Chambers and Trudgill explains this. A dialect is a language variety that can be determined in terms of region, register, social style, etc. The technical term in Chinese for a dialect is fangyan, which literally means top length. There have been people, academic authors who have translated fangyan into English as top length, which means the language of the place. Okay, so it's a regional definition of dialect. Okay, so Chinese dialects, fangyan, are primarily defined in terms of place. And you can imagine how big China is. There are hundreds and thousands of sub dialects. So, for example, the 7 main family groups of the Chinese dialects can be found as this one. So, Mandarin, which is the official dialect, is originally a northern dialect. Okay, so it's spoken in the north. There's also Cantonese, as we all know, spoken in the southeastern province of Canton. There's also Min, which can be divided into northern and southern Min. Okay, which is spoken in also in the southern part of China, but also in Taiwan. Taiwan speak a particular form of Min a dialect that can be found in the mainland. For example, Hokkien. There's also Hakka, also in the south. There's also Wu. Wu is another major dialect, which can also be divided into northern and southern. So it's a northern. A major proponent is Shanghainese. Southern is the Wenzhou dialect. There's also Xiang. There's also Gan. So these are the traditional 7 dialect families of Chinese. So Chinese is absolutely not the case that it consists of 2 dialects. There are thousands of sub varieties that need to be accounted of. If we look at this classic map, which I took from the Chinese School of Amsterdam. So here, as you can see, Mandarin, which is a sort of a pink color, it's in the sort of northern parts of China, and below that you've got Wu, you've got Xiang, you've got Pan. Cantonese is, okay. So this is where Canton is and where Cantonese is spoken. Okay. So you're taking all of this in mind. Why should we just give Cantonese a free pass? What's so special about Cantonese? Given that it seems to be just one out of God knows how many number of dialects. So why protect and save Cantonese? Although Cantonese is not just spoken in China. Cantonese has been spoken by generations of people who have emigrated from China in the West, especially in North America, so modern America, Canada, etc. In fact, Leland Stanford, the founder of Stanford University, hired Cantonese speaker migrants as laborers to build, the famous campus. This is one of the main arguments proposed by the people at the Save Cantonese to why Stanford should retain Cantonese as an education option, because they believe that Stanford owes its foundation to those Cantonese-speaking migrants. But Cantonese is not just a local dialect in China. Cantonese is a heritage language in in the U.S. and in Canada as well. Oops. Where there are many sort of diasporic communities of people who speak mainly Cantonese. So, oops, my screen seems to be frozen. Okay. And then, yeah, there are numerous expressions in the West, that come from Southern Chinese expressions. For example, Chinatown. Chinatown, we're all familiar with Chinatown. Yeah, the Chinese term in Chinatown is Hong and Dai. Okay, in mainland China, they tend to refer to themselves as Han. They call themselves Han, etc. But however, but Hong is actually a Southern Chinese ethnic term. Okay, and also the term for Chinese expat is Hua Kiu, where Hua also encompasses your Chinese ethnicities. Okay, so these sort of your Chinese immigrant terms, they have origins in sort of southern forms of Chinese. So Chinese isn't just a local dialect; it's a significant variety with international distribution and heritage status in the West. So it is key for how these Chinese expats communicate and connect with their cultural ancestry. Okay, so Chinese is an international heritage language with generations of speakers, just as other dialects that Min, Hakka, Hokkien, and Teochew all also have. But then Cantonese is numerically bigger than these varieties. So from a personal perspective, endangered languages is actually, yeah, I'm about to finish. This is the last slide. Endangered languages is actually a prominent theme in linguistics right now. The namely languages that are being endangered are those that have fewer than a few hundred speakers. But in the LSA earlier this year, there was a panel on the Endangered Language Fund, which seems to be parallel to the Endangered Species Act, namely just ways to preserve endangered languages. Now, Cantonese is not endangered in this sense because there are still many, millions of speakers, and Cantonese is still going strong. But as far as the heritage speakers in North America are concerned, they require the preservation of Cantonese from cuts in universities and colleges. For this reason, my contribution to this campaign is mainly my writings online, by op-eds and my blogs and online sort of news media and social media, which I see as language advocacy. In a recent blog by Kathy Stein-Smith, and Kathy may be here right now, but if she cannot, able to read out her final conclusion. Independent scholars, through their academic background and research skills, can play a pivotal role in creating a multilingual society and world. The role of independent scholarship is unique, and they bring both scholarly expertise and independence as thinkers in this conversation. Let's make sure that all of us have the opportunity to add multilingualism to the set. And then we'll just finish with a Ronin sign. Thank you all very much.